welcome to the program. I'm State Representative Rosemary Brown. Buying a home is the largest purchase most people make. It's vital that you have all the information you need to make a good decision. Integra Home Counseling offers guidance on this process of buying a home and also lends counseling on how to react to the trends of decreasing property values and also increasing property taxes. I've invited my county colleague, Representative Jack Rader, here today, along with Linda Gerkensmeyer from Integra Home Counseling, to talk about the real estate climate in our county and many services Integra offers. Thank you all very much for being here today, and I think this conversation is going to be a very deep conversation and offer hopefully a lot of information for the people watching from Monroe and Pike counties today. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, Rosemary.
Good morning.
Appreciate it.
Good morning, Representative Rader.
Thank you for having me here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So this is your service that you offer at Integra is amazing, and I know all of us refer a lot of our constituents to you. And when we talk behind the scenes, we talk about how many people really know about you and know everything that you do. And we know there are a lot of people that know, but we want more people to know. And we want more people to understand what you do and how they really can benefit from it. So let's just open it up right from there to an open question. Tell us about Integra and tell us about yourself.
Thank you. I've been doing housing counseling for over 8 years. I've had a background in banking and consumer education, alternative therapies, meaning stress management. So we do a lot to assist people to reduce their stress, understand what's going on. We've coined a phrase. It's called full stage life cycle counseling. So whatever stage they are when they come to us, we help them through that stage, whether it's one meeting or 3 years. We hang in there with them. And we go to things like diversion hearings with them. We give them all kinds of solutions and options for whatever the situation happens to be. We also then ask them to think about the rest of the stages of their lives. Nobody gets out of this life alive. We all need to do planning for our end of life as well. And all the stages in between from where we are now till then. That way the family's not dealing with an emergency situation at a time when they're upset and feeling a loss. And it makes the whole family comfortable that we can handle whatever comes up, whether it's the loss of a job, whether it's the loss of a family member, whether it's an illness, no matter what it is. If we're prepared with a functional budget, if we're prepared with emergency funding and so forth, and if we know the system, we know how it works. There's so many misconceptions. People come into our office all the time, and we sit down with them and give them information first. And the whole idea for that is so that they are not just stressed out and reacting to things, so that they can think about what they're doing, come up with a strategic plan, work that plan, feel safe in their homes, do what they need to do, and move on and get through the process of whatever it is. Almost everybody, when they leave the office, on the way out to the door, they talk to my assistant, Vicki. She's tremendous. And they always say, "Oh, I'm so glad I came," just because they get that information. So our whole idea is to give them real solid information. Most of the time, people are reacting to marketing, whether it's marketing for modifications or marketing for home purchases or reverse mortgages or anything. They're reacting to that marketing. And depending on their circumstance, they can be very fearful about the consequences of where they are. So when you're in fear, you can't act wisely. So it's important that they calm down, get safe, and then come up with a strategy that really works.
Linda, in my office, and you do a great job every time we call
Thank
you, you're a lot of help.
Thanks.
And we get a lot of people that come in with problems, but most of the time they come in and they say, well, I'm going to lose my home in 2 weeks, what can I do? And it seems like it's late in the game. When should people start thinking about it to come in and talk to you? I know that's too late, and they probably don't want to come in too early. So what would you suggest to someone who's thinking about maybe, gee, I have some problems here, what should I do?
Well, let me go back and preface that. the optimum time for anybody to have housing counseling is before they buy a house. Okay, that's key. Because if you do that, then you have an ability to look at your budget, not just for the purchase of the house, but do I have the ability to have an emergency fund that I can take care of the normal things, like, for instance, my car engine blew up.
The boiler goes.
And I need, or my hot water heater or something like that. Do I have that room in my budget to sustain myself?
Do you look long term also, like 30 years?
Absolutely.
So if they come in when they're 25, you're going to look to see how they're going to be able to afford this when they're 55.
The biggest thing right now, particularly in Monroe County, is everybody's interested in modifications. The modifications take the mortgage out 40 years. So if somebody is now 50, are you going to have the same income at 90 to be able to pay that mortgage?
And do you really know what your
Adjusting
income's going to be at 90? You
Right.
really don't. You may think you know, but you don't know.
You can
Well,
predict the best you can.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really important to have that long-term view. Now, getting back to your question, the best time to come in is as soon as you feel that there's a problem. Now, a challenge with that, many people will call their bank and say, I just got laid off. I know that I'm going to have a problem in a couple of months. What can you do to help me? The banks are not geared to do that. The banks are only geared to help you once you have fallen behind, okay? So in that situation, the best thing you can do is come to housing counseling, review with us your expenses, all the options that you're spending, start taking steps and track your spending. Many people, I'll hear a common phrase, which is, I don't have much money, so therefore I don't have to budget. And that is so false, because that's exactly the time that you do need to budget. Because if you have an idea of where every penny is going and you see a trend, like your electric bill just keeps going up, you can hone in on that electric bill and say, how can I get it down? What can I do? Now, you guys are really, really good dealing with the utility companies, because that's a state-regulated agency. So we often refer people to you guys to deal with those kind of issues. But the important part is having a good look at the budget. We have a saying that we use all the time. It's, whose hands are in your pockets? So every single penny that everybody spends is somebody else's hands in your pocket. So how deep do you want those hands to go? For how long? That's all individuals' choices. And you can look at things and see, this cable bill is outrageous. I'm spending more on my cable than I am for food. Okay? What's important here? How can I reduce it? What can I do? So we give people a lot of suggestions and ideas. We don't make decisions for them. We just give them options. We give them, help them to decide, see where their priorities are based on what they're telling us, and based, again, comparing that to what they're spending.
So there's very few times somebody would come in and say, oh, you're coming in way too early. That doesn't happen.
Oh, that never happens.
Yeah.
Never,
Or
ever
prevention
happens.
with anything, right?
Right.
Prevention with anything in life, and preparation is always, so it is.
And what we do, one of the things by them coming in way early is we give them that information. So say it's a loss of a job. If you know what the process is, you can have your full attention on getting a replacement job instead of having split attention, worry on the house and potential foreclosure, and trying to get a job.
And probably you can look and see what type of job you need. You might not need to make as much as you think you need to make, and you can show them exactly what they'll have to make ends meet with what the expenses are.
That's right. And we give people options as well. For instance, we don't just deal with the mortgage holder, I mean the mortgagee, the person on the mortgage. We deal with the whole family, okay? In fact, we have had family counseling where the husband and wife have come in, and one of the issues in that situation was that the adult children were not working. and they were kind of resistant to getting out and just taking any job they could get for the initial experience and then build on that. So we had the whole family come in for counseling and went through the budget, the entire budget. Some months later, they came back to us where we reviewed the modification document. We always do that with people so they're sure they know what they're signing. And here, when they came back, after that counseling with the whole family, the older children had gotten a job and they're paying regularly into the family coffers. So everybody started working together.
Is making the effort. Everybody's trying to make it work.
And that's what's required. Just as we have to have a country, a town, you know, a community working together, we have to families have to work together. And it's really, really important. Not only that, if people do not have their children involved, not from a worry standpoint, that doesn't do anybody good, but if you are doing the budgeting, and these are the realities of things, it's surprising because sometimes the children come up with cost savings that the adults don't think about. Okay?
Or willing to,
right?
Right. Willing to,
yes,
maybe the parent,
or
right?
willing. And a lot of times, the secondary benefit is even more important because if the children are working with the family to do the budgeting, now when they have their own household, they know how important it
They have
is.
experience.
Training.
So, Rosemary, I know that financial education is a key issue for you, and I have to thank you for your championship with that. We really need life skills training in the secondary schools, and it has to be from a standpoint of planning for the entire life, and it has to be real. It has to be something that is people can really relate to and understand. A lot of times in other places where I've dealt with that kind of training, sometimes the children will go home, like if they're learning about life insurance,
Bring it back.
they'll go home and ask their parents. And
It's a reverse teaching.
It is.
Yeah.
It works
Yeah.
really well. And things change so much and parents get so busy. Parents need to be open to that information flow as well. So.
Yeah, they're the real skills that really make a difference. Like you said, you hold on to it when you leave school, and then it functions the way you're trying to bring people into your organization. But I think the full life look that you're presenting too, not just here in the moment, 10 years, 15 years, and not just the housing, but the whole piece of the puzzle, what's your emergency and this and that, so you stay away from as much trouble as you can, even though sometimes life happens. We know that. So, but you stay away from it as much as you can. So I think that, and I'm thinking as you're talking, the two of you are talking, is the constituents that come to us at the different phases. So if you're watching, when do you, even though we're talking about this whole broad spectrum, how do you get to Linda? When do you go? When do you really say I'm going? To actually get you in the door there. It's before so the first one, before you buy the home. So if you're looking to buy a home and you're deciding with your family, that's right there, perfect scenario. Come in to see you.
And even for people that haven't had counseling at that point, we do post-purchase counseling.
Right.
So
Make sure everything is
well, and we can review and educate them. For instance, a lot of people do not understand title insurance.
Right.
They don't know what that's for. They just know it was a bank requirement. And they really need to understand it and know what to keep. In the past, with the big recession that we just went through, a number of people had some real problem issues because they didn't know where their title insurance policy was.
Oh, they didn't keep it.
They could have gotten a deed in lieu if they had been able to come up with that title insurance that would have required that company to go back and clear up a title issue that somebody found that prevented that deed in lieu. So they didn't
all the
know that.
technicalities of
Right.
Do people even read what they sign a lot of times when they go to these?
Most of the times people don't.
Well, and
They
you
don't.
look, and you
Yeah,
look at
you look
legal
at it's
documents,
confusing.
and a lot of times it's in legal jargon,
Yeah.
which we always try to change in everything that we
Yes,
do,
we do.
so that anybody could pick it up and read.
Well,
and
the
so-
CFPB has done a wonderful job of transforming a lot of the settlement documents into English,
more.
you know, understandable English.
Yeah.
And the part that they're in the process of really enforcing at this point is that the estimate that is initially given has to be very close to the end result, or that's when you have bait and switch.
Yeah.
So part of the whole process is knowing what to look for. One of the challenges for Pennsylvania is we aren't requiring an attorney, a buyer, to have an attorney at settlement. So some people just think, well, I'll save the money.
Yeah.
Okay?
Not in the long run.
No. Generally, that means that you have no one looking out for your interest at that settlement table. And it is worth its weight to have somebody being clear that knows what the rules are.
Right.
So that, and I just had someone not too long ago, their attorney said, do not sign that. Get up and walk away because this is not correct. And it's so much easier to do that
than
come later.
Try to get
And
out of
there's
it.
really not as much recourse.
Yeah.
I mean, we've taken cases to the Attorney General. They're limited in what they can do just because it's a big state and they've got a lot of subjects.
It's a legal document too, once you
And
sign it.
once you sign it, people don't understand that once you sign that, it's assumed, it's a basic premise that you understand everything that has to do with that. That's the assumption. That's a legal assumption. So
I think most of the time, you put a paper in front of you, you sign it, you put another paper in front of you, you sign it, you just want to get the closing done,
Right.
not even looking at it.
no,
I would think that happens a lot.
most of the time. Most of the time. And people also do not follow through and get a copy of the signed
Oh, really?
documents back.
So they don't even know what they've signed.
Well, they get blank copies, but there's no evidence of
So if they need
all of
evidence
that.
of what happened, they don't have a
Exactly.
signed copy.
Right.
Wow.
So a lot of it is really understanding, at least to a level where you protect yourself and you have a basic understanding that if you have a problem, you know where to go and you go quick.
Yeah.
The longer people wait with an issue, in our area in particular, not only do we have a problem with the property tax rate, a lot of people have been hit with interim tax
Right.
bills. So when you have a settlement, the settlement covers to a certain point, and depending on
Could be
when,
substantial.
oh,
depending on the
thousands
time
of
of-
dollars,
yeah, yeah.
thousands of dollars, and
So no one explains that to them?
no, and
Oh, wow.
and
So they start off right away?
they
in the
start
hole.
off delinquent.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, I mean, how many people have $10,000 sitting around to pay an interim tax
right.
bill?
Especially
People
now.
don't.
Well, on that note, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Thanks.
Did you know that Violet Oakley was the first female artist to receive a large commission for artwork done in a United States Capitol building? In 1902, Joseph Houston, designer and architect for the 3rd Harrisburg Capitol building, commissioned Violet Oakley to paint murals for the governor's reception room. He believed that Oakley's contribution would add interest to the building and act as an encouragement of women of the state. Prior to beginning her work for the Capitol, Oakley set out to England to conduct research for her murals. Upon return, she decided to center her artwork on William Penn and the founding of Pennsylvania. Oakley made sure that Penn's ideals of justice and peace could be seen throughout her work. In 1906, she completed 13 murals titled The Founding of the State of Liberty Spiritual and was placed in sequential order around the governor's reception room. These murals were some of the first to be installed in the Capitol. When Edwin Austin Abbey, another artist for the Capitol, died in 1911, Oakley was offered another opportunity to create murals for the unfinished Senate and Supreme Court chambers. Her work on the Senate murals, including International Understanding, was completed by 1919. Oakley then completed the Supreme Court murals, including the Divine Law, by 1927. Oakley is said to be the principal artist for the Capitol, with a total of 43 murals on display. She remains one of the greatest muralists in the United States. Now you know.
Welcome back to the program. I'm State Representative Rosemary Brown, joined by Representative Jack Rader and Linda Gerkensmeyer from Integra Home Counseling. And we're having a great conversation, very broad conversation, but about the financials and decisions with home purchases and just your overall budget in your household. So we're going to have a lot of information here that I think is going to be very helpful for a lot of people living in our area as they try to review their current financial status in a very difficult economy still. So I know, Jack, you had a very good question for Linda before
Well, I had
we
a
left.
quick question, and thank you for coming. We just had a hearing, all of us had a hearing, Dave Parker had a hearing in Monroe County. You were excellent in what you were, information you're trying to give to us. My question was, I saw in the handout that you had a lot of the foreclosures are from people from 50 and above.
Yes.
And I'm concerned that leads them to the point in their lives where they're probably going to be on fixed income or soon, or they are on fixed income. And I know the commissioners are going to reassess properties, and I'm concerned about those very people being hurt the most, that have been there the longest, are probably on fixed income or will be soon. And now their tax bill is going to go up, and I'm concerned there may be more foreclosures in Monroe County because of that, and that's a concern of mine. Can you speak to that at all?
Sure. With the full stage life cycle counseling that I talked about earlier, we look at those kind of issues. So if somebody comes in with an issue, we take the long view. Okay, now we don't know. I mean, people do die at an early age, so it is important to pay attention to those end of life expenses and all of that process. But particularly with people, we deal with many people that also have the attitude that if I'm over 50, nobody wants to hire me. And we work with that attitude as well.
Fortunately, the legislature, they don't have that opinion. So I don't like it.
But that's, you know, something that, you know, can be addressed as well. But we look at that, whether the assessment will hurt that population or not is nobody knows at this point until the assessment is done. The important part that we tend to raise about that is not only the assessment and the cost of the property, but if somebody is on a fixed income, unless they're living by themselves and they're totally self-reliant on their own income, if say it's a couple and they're both retired on fixed income, if something happens to one of them, that cuts the income in half or less. Right. So for instance, yes, spouses can get survivor's benefits and so forth for that, but if you have been living on that full fixed income...
Probably it's tight anyway, even with both people there, and you're taking no matter what amount of money it is, you're taking some of that away.
Right.
You have to consider that.
It's trouble.
Yeah.
And so what we try and do is get people to think about that before that happens so that they have a plan in place, whether it's maybe going and living with a family member, going into shared housing, going into public housing, relocating to a less expensive area where they can have a less expensive housing, you know, whatever. But we work with people not to you know, put doom and gloom out there, but to plan so that there can be a real transition. Instead of an emergency situation, it can be more of a chosen path.
Well, because of that, I think reassessment, the very people that we don't want to hurt the most, I think probably will be hurt the most. So if people out there are listening, I think maybe they should come to you before that happens and get some plan in place so they can, if you're there for a long period of time, I don't see how your taxes don't go up. So that's going to be an issue.
One of the factors to all of that is that many people do not even understand their own tax bills. When they look at them, they don't know what those numbers mean except the dollar that they owe.
Right.
And they don't know, for instance, about the homestead program. They don't know about the rebate programs, all of those kinds of things. So if they come in and talk about this, even if there's not a crisis today, it prepares them to respond, no matter what the situation is.
Well, it's funny you say that because people come into my office, and I'm sure you too, Rosemary, and the first thing I ask them if they're having issues, are you in this program? Are you in that program? And a lot of times they are not.
Right.
They're not aware.
They don't even know them. No, they don't. We're hoping to get into an education program within the county so that when people come into the county, they start getting information. I'm going to be meeting with the county commissioners this week around some of that. So hopefully we'll be able to to do that so that there's less of a void and more of an awareness with all of that. Absolutely.
Well, and we have just a couple minutes left, but we also want to make sure, you know, with all the good information that you've given on just a pretty broad area, people saying, absolutely, I want to see you, I want to come to some of these counseling sessions, wherever stage of life that they are, whether they're brand new, middle of life, seniors, where are you? How did the home counseling sessions work? How long do they, how much time commitment for families to come in and do this? Costs, things like that. Everything that everybody's thinking and wants to ask.
We're in Tannersville. We chose that specifically because it's more central in our county. We do cover the contiguous counties, Carbon, Northampton, Pike, and Wayne. We've been asked to actually go into another county as well.
Wow.
So we're trying to expand our services. I have a real hard problem with requiring people that are struggling to give up days of work that they get paid to come into counseling. So we do a lot of counseling in non-traditional hours, weekends, evenings as well. We're bilingual. We have Spanish-speaking people as well as English-speaking. And because we're a HUD agency, we're a HUD approved, and a PHFA, Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, HEMAP approved agency. So our services, our counseling services, are free to the client. There are some times when they need to pay, like they're supposed to bring copies of things. Well, it's very expensive to copy all that. So we charge for the copying, we charge for some credit bureau fees.
But that would be minimal, no?
Absolutely minimal. And in dire situations, we also have the ability to remove those charges. So we
can do some copying in our office if somebody needs a copy or something too. If they ever need to come to you prior, we could do a couple copies.
So the way that it works is they call for an appointment, and we make an appointment that's convenient for all of us, and we send them a list of information that we will need for the counseling session. So they need to bring that with them, and once they bring that, when they come in, we review that. There are some documents, some disclosures that we have to give them and all that kind of stuff. And then the counseling sessions are usually at least 2 hours, okay? First of all, we give them education. That's a good chunk of the beginning. Then we review their particular situation. We do things based on the conditions. So for instance, coming up very shortly, I think the appointment's this week, I'm going to make a house call because there's an invalid and a bedridden person in that house that needs to understand this. So we don't do that often, but we do that in an emergency situation. We're in the same building as CareerLink and the post office in Tannersville, in Merchants Plaza. It's between Dairy Queen and Best Auto. And we're on the second floor. Most people don't even know there is a second floor.
That's right, I know. So we were up there as well, right?
Yeah. But there's an elevator and there's stairs, so we're completely handicapped accessible. We're bilingual, and we're your best friend for solving problems.
You know, Linda, thank you. The time goes so fast, the 30 minutes, but you do a tremendous job. I mean, even your staff, we were talking that you work day, nights, weekends, and you're just saying it like the unconventional hours to help people. So thank you. But I know your heart and soul's there. You're dedicated to it. And it's just a tremendous service. And I think an area that both Representative Rader and I know, as well as you, really could use what you're doing in the financial literacy behind you. So I think you do great things. Thank you for what you do, and we'll post up some information, obviously, throughout this program. Your information will be up how to contact you as well.
Thank you.
So that's all the time we have for today's program. I'm State Representative Rosemary Brown. If you need assistance with any state government matter, please feel free to contact my local office or through my website. Thank you.